Welcome to Mind Body Monday, and thank you all for joining me. In today's session, we're going to look at what really causes stress, why stress isn't your enemy, and really how to turn stress into your greatest ally. And then I'm going to share with you my favorite tool, one of my favorite tools to use when stressed. And it's something right under your nose, and it's an acronym. I'm going to share that with you towards the end. Also, there's going to be some live Q&A, so stay on for that as well. Most people have heard of the urban legend of a mother who lifted up a huge car to save her child pinned underneath. In fact, when I looked into this urban legend, I came across some fascinating documentaries by the BBC, where several similar situations happened with either a 22-year-old woman from Virginia who lifted up a BMW 525 to save her father as the jack had broken underneath, and she lifted that up. And many, many other examples of this, not only relating cars, but where incredible feats have been performed as a result of stress. So if you're living on planet Earth and you've been around for a while, you probably come face to face with stress in many, many different shapes, forms, and colors. A real working definition that I like the most is stress is how we react to situations when we feel under pressure or feel threatened. It's how we react, or really how we respond, because there is a part that's reactive and there's a part that's responsive. And this will be given away in the key of the acronym towards the end of today's session. So on a physiological level, just chemically in the body, when we get stressed, there's a sympathetic nervous system that gets stimulated, also called the fight and flight system. And this causes an immediate rush of stress hormones like adrenaline and cortisol into our bloodstream. This hurtles through our bodies, every cell in our body, our brain, and many, many physiological changes happen. And you're going to see how these are all quite beneficial. Firstly, the heart rate is increased several fold as a result of adrenaline. The breathing is increased, the lungs and alveoli dilate. All digestive activity ceases. That is one of the reasons, if you've been following me on Mind Body Monday, not to eat if you're stressed out, physically stressed or emotionally stressed, because the digestive enzymes are turned off, and the food will likely decay and cause all sorts of dysregulations in your system. The liver secretes glucose and our pupils dilate. These are a handful of key physiological changes that happen to each one of us when we get stressed, obviously on various degrees. So let's look at some of how these engineered changes in our body can be quite beneficial. And this is really where the secret of stress is not so bad for us. You know, people think stress, they start freaking out if you think of stressful situation, but stress can be very positive. So let's start with the body. Let's start understanding those changes and how beneficial they really are. Because when the fight and flight situation is stimulated, it happens in our body because of cortisol, because of adrenaline, the heart rate increases. Why? Simply to pump more blood through the body. And this helps the large muscles like in our legs and our arms to carry us away from trouble. So there's a lot of wisdom in that change. Our alveoli and our lungs dilate, and this causes more oxygen to enter into our bloodstream, to enter into our brain, so we can think better and have more oxygen in the blood to actually have those muscles carry us where we need to go. The liver releases glucose, and this is a wonderful thing in this situation because glucose is the key source of fuel for the muscles in this situation. Our pupils dilate. This is to allow more light into our eyes so we can have clearer vision in compromised situations. So we see quickly over here with all these stressful things going on in our body that they actually have very positive benefits. So go ahead, if you wouldn't mind, just typing in the chat, how do you see stress, or how have you seen stress in your life be helpful to you? As we've seen physiologically, it can be extremely helpful and even life-saving. Just type in the chat. Yes, so David's written, if we didn't have stress, we wouldn't meet deadlines. Exactly. If we didn't have stress, in fact, the best example for me is a flat line of an electrocardiogram. There's no stress, there's no movement, there's no life, but it is that up and down that is the pulse and the rhythm of life that is stressful. But not every stress is bad. In fact, just today and yesterday and the day before, my wife and I were working very feverishly and ambitiously to get our 18-year-old off to yeshiva for the first time, Yeshiva Gundle. And there was stress, and it activated us to make lists, take action, be proactive, and get him off in a happy and organized way. And if you think a lot of the women who are here, if you think about specifically stress around Yontif time, we now just began the month of Elul, the Jewish month of Elul, where we continue in the next month towards the head of the new year, Rosh Hashanah, and then we've got Yom Kippur, and we have Sukkot, and all of these could be stresses and get a person overwhelmed. And we're going to look at how these will propel us to get organized, to get planned, get our lists going, get our menus sorted out. And this stress could be very, very positive. In fact, I created a YouTube video recently about one mindset shift to really change all the, I have to get the kids out, I must make up the recipes for Yom Tov or Shabbos, I get to, pick up, I have to pick up the kids from school, or whatever all the coulds, ought to, should haves, which are quite stressful. If we just have them reframe and change one word, the one word is get. I get to pick up my kids from school. I get to prepare the Yom Tov or Shabbos menu. I get to spend time with the family instead of I ought to or should do. So the same stressful situation, when viewed through the lens of a get, as a gratitude, as an opportunity, the stress just really can fade away. And I'm going to share more about this in the acronym towards the end. Yes, Hannah's written in, on Erev Shabbos, I seem to have more strength and clarity to make Shabbos. Wonderful. Wonderful. I know there are spiritual reasons for that, but on just physically, there is, regardless of summer or winter, whenever Shabbos comes in, there is always that last minute thing. And that stress propels us in a positive direction, hopefully, to take action in an organized way. Yes, someone else has written, David, thank you. When I have a deadline, I have the stress, I usually have more stamina to sit at my desk and complete the task. I've noticed for myself as well, there's more focus, there's more engagement. So stress is a very, very positive thing. In fact, there's something called eustress, E-U-S-T-R-E-S-S. And that is a positive stress. It's like receiving a promotion or starting a new job or getting married or buying a home or having a baby. These are positive stresses that have a very that engage us to take action in a positive way as well. In fact, another positive stress that I have in my life on a daily basis, in fact, just in the middle of Corona, I started this practice. It's called cryotherapy. Cryotherapy is a cold plunge pool. And every morning before sunrise, I'm in a 10 degrees Celsius, which is about a 50-degree Fahrenheit cold plunge pool. And this is called hormesis. Hormesis is a small dose of a stressor that has tremendously great or disproportionately great benefits. So in my situation where I'm plunging into a 10-degree cold pool, which is most uncomfortable, but I'm only there for anywhere between a minute to 3 minutes. And this stress has been researched to boost the immune system, to create more clarity of mind, is a powerful anti-inflammatory, and many, many other benefits from cold therapy. So if any of you are privileged not to have a plunge pool like I do, but you can even take a cool bath or a cool shower after a hot bath or shower, because that closes your pores, but also you'll get a little bit of this hormesis, this positive stress going through your system. Okay, David, yes, you've sent me lots of love in the chat. Yeah, in fact, David, if you want, you can come with your swimwear and come join me in my cold plunge to keep you going for the day. Some people down their coffee to get set for the day. I just take a 10-degree plunge pool, and I'm aiming with time to get used to that temperature going down, and that will come. So watch this space. So that's a positive stress that I'm consciously choosing to bring into my life, because it has many, many positive benefits. So now that we've recognized what stress is and the physiological effects of stress and the positive spin-off to a lot of that in our body, with all those, the heart pumping more and the lungs stimulating more oxygen and the pupils dilate, all that has positive spin-offs. So too, that is also a metaphor for any stress in our life, either you stress, positive stress or not, where through perception, we can change any stress really to become more positive. So let's look at that more deeply. Let's look at the third topic of today's Mind Body Monday, which is how can you turn stress into becoming your greatest ally? So there was a biologist at Michigan State University. Her name is Dana Helmrich, and she did some fascinating research with how perception, how we view things, can mediate and modulate the effects of stress. Now, she did this experiment in an ethical way as possible with some rats. There were 2 rats in a cage. They were both exposed to a minor stressful stimulus. The only difference is one rat had a lever in the cage that with its claw or its nose, it could push the lever down and turn off that stress. The other rat could not do that. And there was no lever in their cage. So when the stimulation came in, the cortisol of these rats were tested, and which is a measure of stress. The cortisol rose for both of them, but in the rat cage with the lever called the effector, because they were able to effect change, their cortisol quickly dropped down, and their body went back into self-regulation. But the other rat, who had no control over the stimulus, even though it was now turned off, remained in a stressful situation with even more cortisol being stimulated, and I have a reciprocal heart rate increasing as well, and other stress responses. In other words, they were exposed to the same stressor. One was able to control it, and the other had no perception of control. And that was the only difference. So this is a key takeaway, is that when we are involved in a stressful situation, the invitation is there to look for a way you can control the situation practically, by planning, by organizing things better, by strategizing, and to share with you some of these strategies at the end, or simply taking a deep breath in, some way to control the stress. That way, the perceived effects in the physiology in your body, how it affects you, will be very, very short-lived. And this is what they discovered, that when this rat who was able to control that stimulus was turned that off, their stress levels just dropped down. With the other rat, their stress levels remained high. And all that has to do with perceived control. So we want to be like that executive, so to speak, in our life when we get exposed to stress, to begin to look for ways to get a modicum of control. And I'm going to share my acronym, which will help you put that together. In other words, what happens, and we've all seen this, I've seen this in my life too, that 2 people faced with exactly the same stressful situation can have totally different physical and emotional reactions. What's the difference? The perception, how each perceives this situation. Do they see it as a challenge? Do they see the stress as a challenge where they can grow from and improve? Or do they see the stress as a threat that will cause them to freeze, to flee, or get overwhelmed by? So it's really a big perceptual game in terms of how we perceive stress. I was speaking to a friend of mine about my cryotherapy morning ritual, the cold plunge pool. And as soon as I said, every morning I'd jump into a cold plunge pool, he went, ooh, and he said, no, that will freak me out. Now, obviously, we all have different reactions to hot and to cold, etc. But without the proper training and perceptual understanding and learning the science behind it, it will be a stressor because you don't have that perception to understand it from a positive perspective. Growing up in South Africa, I used to spend a lot of time in the nature reserves and in the wild. And one of my trips, I was at the Kruger National Park. And I've seen on more than one occasion a chase between a lioness and a flock or a herd of zebras. And I saw one particular case where this lioness was chasing after a zebra towards the back of the pack. And it was a wild chase, and I was convinced through my binoculars that this was going to be breakfast or lunch or dinner, whatever it happens to be for that lion. But the good news is in this particular occasion, this zebra got away. So we followed it, and it went to a local waterhole. And at that waterhole, I saw it shaking, snorting, digging its hooves in the ground, flickering its tail, de-stressing. And the game person I was with told me that this is the natural response to being in a life-threatening situation that the animal world exhibits by de-stressing, giving their body this time to shake, to breathe, to snort, to flicker, to de-stress. And that life-threatening situation is very quickly turned off, where all those stress hormones were hurtling through the zebra's body to literally save its life. And it did save its life, but then it didn't go on with life as normal until it had given itself time to de-stress and self-regulate. For me, that is a really, really important lesson, because the whole aim here is not to become, Zen-like on some mountain retreat and be unfazed by what happens in life. We are feeling human beings. We are fallible human beings, and things hurt and things are stressful. However, when we pace ourselves and be kind and sensitive and caring to ourselves, become our own best ally, we can take some time to de-stress, to self-regulate with many, many available tools out there. The difference, by the way, between the zebra and the human being is that we have a wonderful brain, and in our brain is called the prefrontal cortex. And with this part of our brain, we are able to replay a stressful scene over and over and over again, even though it may have happened yesterday, last week, last year, or 50 years ago. By recreating that image in our brain, we are activating the same stress hormones, the cortisol, the adrenaline, the heart rate, etc., blood pressure issues that the first insult or stress did. So the key part of this is to recognize that our mind and our thinking has a key part, not only in perception of the stress, but in also replaying. And I always like to share with my patients that a thought lasts for only as long as you think it. That means whatever distressing thought we may have entertained in our mind, brain science has shown time and time again that a thought lasts for only as long as you think it. The more you think a thought, the easier it will become to repeat again. So the zebra doesn't have that capability, but we can learn from that. And if we find ourselves thinking about stressful situations over and over again, just remember, a thought lasts for only as long as you think it. All it is a molecule in our brain, electrical stimulation, and by redirecting your thought to something helpful, to something positive, to some other helpful distraction, you will be able to get out of that stressful situation. Just before we begin with our acronym, let's all take a nice deep breath in. So sitting up in your chairs, breathing in through your nose. And as you breathe out through pursed lips, drop your shoulders down, feel your back against the back of the chair. And then once again, through your nose, a nice deep cleansing breath in. And then as you breathe out, relax your face, soften your chest. Just allow your breathing to center yourself, calm your mind, settle your body down again. Because we're going to be exploring the acronym BREATHE as an anchor to help guide you through any stressful situation in your life. So the BREATHE, the B stands for breath, which you've just practiced. It oxygenates our brain and calms the body. So the first response to any stressful situation, if you hear when someone gets bad news, they go, you notice they're breathing. It's very short breathing that is high up in the chest. It does not oxygenate the brain well. It does not oxygenate the body well, and it stimulates adrenaline and cortisol. But a slow, deep breath in calms the body down and settles the brain as well. So the first response to any stress is to breathe. With more oxygen in your brain, you're going to have more clarity to think about the next step. And the R of our acronym stands for reflect. Simply to think about what is stressing me out here, to keep it in proportion. I'll always remind myself, whatever stressful situation I'm going through, it could always be worse. There are other people having things significantly worse than I am in this moment. So the R stands for reflect, to get a sense of what is causing me the stress, because understanding it sometimes can just give you a little bit of distance. And naming is taming. If you can name what's causing you stress, you've already tamed an aspect of that. Your body will be able to calm down. Your brain will go from overdrive to settling down. And your second step in getting yourself back to self-regulation. The E of the word breath stands for empathy. The key piece with empathy is do not beat yourself up. Whether it's something you failed from or you think you failed from, just be your own best friend. It's as simple as that. Just imagine if a friend of yours is going through this, how you would console them, how you would comfort them. Empathize, turn that lens around to yourself. Be your own best friend. Tell yourself soothing things, soothing self-talk. Be kind to yourself. Get some extra sleep maybe. Go for a walk. Regroup, but be kind to yourself. The A of breathe stands for accept. That means accept things as they are. Don't make them worse than they actually are. And in the acceptance, knowing that through divine orchestration, things are exactly as they are meant to be in this moment. It's the perfect imperfection. Through our limited lens, we may see things as very stressful and challenging. In fact, there's this book that I read my kids. Actually, it's a kid's storybook, but I think it's really an adult storybook, where on the first page you see this kid looking through a little keyhole of a door, and he sees this man with a knife going to cut off someone's leg, and he's freaking out. And then he turns the page, and he sees it's an operating theater with a doctor, with a surgical team going to do some surgery to save a person's life. And then next page, the kid looks through here and sees some other scary scene, and then he turns that page over and he gets the bigger picture. So the acceptance is really accepting things for how they are. And it also ties back to the reflection in seeing things in perspective. that ultimately things are happening for a good reason, even though right now we absolutely do not know how or why. And part of this acceptance, at least the teaching I practice in my life, is what I call the box of unknowables. I think we should all walk around either with a backpack or a little box to our side called the box of unknowables. In fact, in Likutei Moharan, Rabbi Nachman teaches about this concept. There's so much of life that is beyond our control, out of our control, but we have to know that everything is in perfect control. Everything happens exactly how and when it's needed. Like my daughter having a full-blown seizure today, just as I was going to sit down to prepare for this Mind Body Monday training on stress. And there it is in my face. And my wife and I looked at one another and chuckled because, hey, that's human. This is divine orchestration. It's exactly as it's supposed to be. So, I just got smart and, there's so much more I wanted to share with you and said, not happening. Let's just give you the executive summary. If I can add value in one way, in one lesson, done. Check that box and the more will come at another time. So that's exactly what's happening. And as I was preparing and my wife was just reading through my points just to make sure it made sense, my 13-year-old was saying, about how long are you going to be? She was looking after our special needs child. She wanted to get off the things she wanted to do. So there was a lot of competition going on. So while we calmed her down, I was able to get on with just having an organized Mind Body Monday flow of sharing real life situations. And the stress of this helped me to focus in a much more clear way than I may have. And then obviously trying to find some care to help us through the night. So that was accept things that as exactly as they are, and things are perfect as they are. The T of breathe stands for thank. Thank Hashem, thank the Creator for this hidden gift. In every situation in my life, when I look back with 20/20 vision, every major stress had a hidden gift in it. So now going forward into my life, when I'm hit with some major stressful situation, I know in my heart of hearts, there's a hidden gift here. Where is it? So my focus goes on to that place rather than getting overwhelmed or getting numb or getting stuck in that situation. But I'm looking for where is the teaching, where is the gold in this situation. And then the E of our breath acronym stands for engage. Use the stress to take appropriate action. So yes, everybody can get stuck and overwhelmed. And if that needs to happen, make some time for it, but don't get stuck there too long. Take hold of breathe, take a few slow, nice, deep breaths in, reflect, get a sense of what's causing you the stress. Have empathy for yourself. Don't beat yourself up. Be your own best friend. Accept the situation is divinely orchestrated, is exactly as it's supposed to be. Thank Hashem for this hidden gift that hopefully you're going to find, and engage, use the stress to take appropriate action. This is what I have under my nose, my breathing acronym that just helps me through my day, regardless of many stresses or big stresses. This is one of the things that get me through the day. So I've seen in my practice when people don't have the perceptual understanding of stress and all stress is negative, things can just spiral out of control, totally unnecessarily. So I hope this has added value in the understanding that stress is a perceptual game. It's a matter of how we perceive it. Like I mentioned with my cold water plunging, my friend couldn't fathom the idea, and I know it's a positive experience, even though it's a mini stress, but the benefit outweighs the discomfort. Thanks once again for joining me on Mind Body Monday. I look forward to seeing you next week. And just remember, the Mind Body Monday is all about where self-care is the heart of healthcare. All you need to do is take one small step in the direction of your health and well-being, and I'll see you next week.